Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome to day 14 of my vlogs. So today we're going to talk about something that at the time definitely made my heart skip a beat, but it is not directly as a result of as a result of the relationship between me and Chrissy. Not to say that I have a part, plays a part in it obviously, but anyway, so we're going to talk about the day that the two of us almost got caught by my dad. Now, in 2009, everybody in my family, in my house, was working except for me. So, I would just, I don't even think I did anything. I went to school, but, I wasn't going very often, so I was at my house most of the time. I mean, I guess I am kind of now, but anyway, it wasn't during the afternoon, it was, so, during one night, at this time, me and Chrissy usually hung out, in the evening hours, sometime at night, because I could just, usually what would happen is, she could, come pick me up, because usually my car, I think, was inside the garage, and I didn't, obviously, because my dad was behind me, she'd have to pick me up. So on this night, it's maybe 10:30ish, and I figure everyone's either off to bed or about to sleep because all the lights are off. So I text Chrissy and I'm like, I think we were going out to I don't remember what place to hang out, but so I text her. I'm like, all right, just let me know when you're about to get here. And she's like, alright. So fast forward a little bit, and she texts me, she's like, I'm about a minute out. And I'm like, I tell her, I'm not really ready yet. And I was like, maybe we should just chill here for a little bit and just come up to my room. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'll just open the door, we'll come up to my room, everyone's asleep anyway. So she's like, okay. So when she gets here, I open the door, we come up to my room, and we start talking, which brings me to a subplot that I'll start a little bit right now. I believe I've talked about this before, but if I haven't, a big part of me during high school was the fact that I was in marching band, that most of my friends were from there, and most of my life just circled around it. And I believe I said it was the first day when she told, the first day we met, when she told me that she was in marching band herself when she was in high school. And so when we stood there, when we sat there in my room that night, we were talking about the fact that even though I still don't want to say where she's from, this, if you know a little bit about the lore of high school marching band, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and that'll be the closest you'll ever get to something major, I guess you could say, in who Chrissy really is. But anyway, she was part of one of the greatest shows, in my opinion, and I guess technically, statistically speaking, one of the greatest shows in high school marching band, in '98. And so we were talking about that in my room that night. We were talking about how, I asked her, I was like, how does it feel? I was like, it's funny because I never asked her before, because I figured either she got asked it a lot if they knew about it, or I don't know, maybe she didn't really she wasn't exactly sure. Maybe she, I don't know. Because, if someone ever asked me about, like, one of my shows, I'd try to say stuff, but I don't know if I could ever say, like, stuff, everything that people would want to know. But, anyway, like, I couldn't get into a lot of the details, especially for me not being in, drill ever in my high school career. But, so then, we were talking about that and jumped back to, we probably weren't talking for even 30 minutes. I noticed some like noise coming from the living room, and I'm like, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, what the hell is that? So I peek up a little bit, and I find out that my dad is outside watching something, in the living room downstairs, and I'm like, I think to myself, I'm like, oh my god. I didn't say oh my god. I said something a little worse, but I'll try to keep it PG on these videos. And so Chrissy's like, what? And I'm like, my dad is downstairs. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, when we wanted to chill and hang out, we weren't gonna hang out too long. We're probably gonna hang out for like an hour, hour and a half. And I'm like, I think my dad's watching a movie. And unless he falls asleep, which he was definitely prone to back then, I was like, you have to stay here until he falls asleep, because we can't just go down. And then she's like, okay. At the point, I've said this like a lot of times, how even though we were, going pretty well by then, I was still kind of afraid to introduce her to my family, because, back then I was very scared of hearing, what they would say about her, and I was like, I don't want to deal with that. So, and, I think, I want to say that Chrissy didn't mind just because of the fact that, I hadn't met her parents yet either, even though they obviously live in a different state, so, but, the closest person I had ever met in Chrissy's life was Rios, and that's just because, that's her roommate, that's her best friend, but, in hindsight, maybe we could have just gone downstairs and just, figured out some way to explain, but, I was like, we'll just stay here. And she's like, alright, fine. I think at one point she had the idea to jump from outside my room window. It's behind. I don't really want to show you because I think someone's outside, like in one of the other houses, but the jump from the roof where my window is to the grass it's not that far of a jump, but it's still kind of high. And also there's a window leading to my mom and dad's bathroom right there. I can stare at it from here. So I was like, no, that's out of the question. But if you get hurt, I know it's not big of a jump, but still. And so she's like, all right. So, we go back to talking about her show, and I'm just like, did you at least, I hate changing the subject, but I was like, I'm just like so fascinated by the fact that she was in such a crazy show. And she's like, look, it's just a show. I know that we pull that off really, really well, but it's no different from, anything else really. She was like, when I left the field after we were done, I felt the same as I did, and on my other shows that I had been a part of, and I was like, all right, fair. Because like when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that's probably fair. I definitely, in hindsight, have favorites in the years that I were there, but when looking back on it, I loved I loved every part of every show I was part of in high school. So I was like, I get it. You don't really like differentiating between all your years, and I can respect that. But anyway, back to the main story. So we hang out for a little bit longer, and I'm like, you know what, I'm pretty sure my dad is like, sleeping. I can kind of hear him snoring, so I'm like, let's just go. And then she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, just, I'll walk you to your car. She's like, why don't I just walk down myself? And I'm like, no, if my dad isn't sleeping, then he's gonna be like, who the hell are you? I'm sorry, I said dad, but, she's like, alright, fine. At least if I'm with her, I can make up some silly reason. But, so I'm like, alright, let's just go. And so we go downstairs. He's like half asleep, like I said. And so, thank God he's a pretty deep sleeper, because he's like right there. Yeah, I know there's like the chimney hiding, but still, I can open the door and she can get out. And so, like, she left, obviously, like I said, nothing happened, he didn't wake up. But, I was like, I guess I jumped the gun a little bit. Like, after that day, I was just like, I started thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't really keep this secret very much longer. It was getting harder and harder to keep, Chrissy out of the rest of my life without it having, some kind of effect. Because, I keep my family very close to me, so for me not to introduce her to them was very hard, even though I didn't want to do it. And it did lead me eventually to what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, which is the first time I'd ever told somebody in my family that I was dating someone. And that'll be where I end the story today. I'm sorry if it sounded a little incoherent trying to intertwine two stories, but yeah, that's about it. If you like the show, if you like the story, definitely keep following along. If you have been following along, thank you very much. And I know this is gonna, this seems a little dull right now, but I promise that it will definitely be worth your while, especially in a little bit of foreshadowing, especially towards the end, when I get to the end of our relationship. But yeah, thanks again, and till tomorrow, see ya.